Now, let's move on to the next formation, and that is both players up. Let's say that this was a returning player, and he or she returned and moved into the net. So now we've got two players up at the net. And this is the most common position when I'm working with students or in a team practice, and myself and my colleagues are trying to encourage our students to serve and volley or return and volley and move into the net. This is the most common position that shows up after that, is we'll have the server stay back, returner return and move in, and now we have both players in a net position and a defensive one up, one back position on the other side. In this position, you have to be more cautious. Both players can't close in super tight anymore because the lob is now wide open. Wide open. So don't be a sucker. And very, very often, I have players who just go to extremes back and forth. They will return and stay back several points in a row. And I'll say, hey, listen, this server is staying back. They're giving you a chance to move in and really pressure them. So take it. And so they'll say, all right, I'll give it a try. They'll hit the return cross court, move in, maybe hit that first volley or half volley from no man's land or the service line, back cross court, continue moving in, and before I know it, they're all the way up here within arm's length of the net, and then they get lobbed over, and their partner didn't make the reaction fast enough or isn't fast enough to go back and cover behind them. And they get burned, and they say, well, Ian, that obviously didn't work. I did what you said. I got burned with the lob, and then before I know it, they go back to the opposite extreme of staying back at the baseline because they get scared of the lob and they get intimidated by it, and so they stop taking my suggestion of moving forwards. Don't go in extremes. Understand that returning and volleying or serving and volleying doesn't mean that you hit your return and you go up to here. That's not what it means. So, returning and volleying can mean hitting your return and just closing up to the service line and showing your opponent across from you, look, me and my partner, we're both in an offensive position. We are prepared to put the ball away if you give us anything weak. Here's your challenge. Try to hit it over us. Try to hit it past us. You better come up with something good. And in this position where you and your partner are both up at the net versus a one-up, one-back team on the other side, you have to be cautious. And so what I suggest you start off with is probably about one step inside the service line, something right around here. If you're going to serve and volley or return and volley, and you and your partner want to form a wall up there at the net, which I highly recommend, it's my favorite doubles position for you to be in, you and your partner, don't overplay it. And from here, you should be making adjustments, just like I talked about in the previous section, the one-up, one-back section. If your opponents continue to drive and they try to hit past you and your partner, they try to hit it at your feet and dip it down low to pressure you, or they try to blast it right at you, great. This is your opportunity to continue closing forwards. And as you see them line up for a drive on the baseline, you should close in, look for an opportunity to take a volley high, and then hit it at the feet of their partner. If, on the other hand, you present yourselves, you and your partner, up in this offensive position, a step inside the service line, and immediately their reaction is to lob, which very, very often it will be, then you can make another adjustment back in the opposite direction. Return and just come in as far as the service line, or maybe even one step behind the service line. To be honest, that's probably, the service line is probably as far back as you're going to need to go. I've heard all the stories. Ian, I returned and volleyed, I served and volleyed, just like you said, and they lobbed and hit 1 inch inside the baseline every time. I'm not buying it. You're going to play teams that are better at lobbing than others. However, most of those lobs are going to be landing somewhere in the middle of no man's land. And from where you're standing here on the service line, if you identify the lob as it's coming off the racket of your opponent, which you should be looking for, and we're going to talk about that next, it should only take you to turn sideways and take 3 shuffle steps back to really be able to take the shot out of the air, play it as an overhead back, and then close right back into the service line again. If you react slowly, or if your footwork is poor, we're going to talk about that too, and you're just not prepared for it mentally, then it's possible that a mediocre volley could still beat you outright. But you need to be prepared for it. Again, this is in a situation where consistently your opponent lobs when he or she sees that you are presenting yourselves in this offensive position up on the service line. So that's what I'd recommend here. Probably a step inside the service line to begin with. If they drive, close in, do your best to take it high, put it away. If they lob, move back, take it out of the air, move back in again. If they lob a lot, then readjust and start off somewhere around the service line, maybe even a step behind the service line in an extreme situation where they just lob everything. I've played teams like that personally in tournament play where I served and volleyed every time, they lobbed every time. I just came into somewhere right around here and I hit overheads all day, and you should be welcoming that. And by the way, if you don't welcome that, work on your overhead, please. If you can't hit a consistent overhead, then tactics, advanced tactics, like both players coming up to the net won't be possible without you making a lot of unforced errors. So work on your overhead so that you can put tactics like this into play. All right, so that's both up on your side of the net. Now let's talk about both up on their side. How close should you get to the net? So we've got a partner back here, maybe hitting a return of serve. We have the server on the other side serving and coming in so that both players are up at the net over on that side. We have a returner, both opponents at the net, and then this is you up in the volley position. So how close should you get to avoid getting lobbed? Because it is possible. Well, in this situation, it completely depends on what your partner does with the ball, and you need to be careful here. If your partner does a good job and gets the ball low to your opponents, great. Close in, get tight, and pressure these two players, or specifically whichever player is getting the ball at their feet. Follow the ball. So if your partner gets it nice and low to this player, then from your starting position as the returner's partner, move in and to your right. If he or she gets it low to the person in front of you, move in and to your left and get close and pressure them. If they get it past you, back up again to play defense. Okay? And in each individual shot, basically you should be moving up and back. If they get an easy shot, then stay back here, maybe even back up further to play defense. If they get a difficult shot down at their feet, move in and play offense. So you need to be very alert and very careful in this situation. And little tip here is when the ball goes back to your partner on the baseline and you are the net player, don't turn and look. Don't turn your head all the way around and look at what your partner is doing to see if they're lobbing or not. Where your focus should be is on these two players. They will tell you, their reaction will tell you everything. And you don't want to get caught looking at the ball back here and then tracking it with your eyes. Oh, look, it's going up in the air. You're watching the ball, watching the ball, watching the ball. The ball gets to your opponents. You look at them and you realize that this player is in an overhead position and the ball is almost to them already, and you're just now realizing that they're about to hit an overhead at you, and you don't even have any time to retreat to get back in a more defensive position. It's possible to watch it and retreat, but you don't see the intent of your opponent. That's the important part. So your eyes in this situation should be looking at your two opponents, or pick one and watch them. You should be watching both of them to see what their reaction is like. And based on that information, you can decide to either close in. If they're starting to bend and get low for a shot, close in. If they're setting their racket up high or getting into an overhead position, then get the heck out of there and back up. In this position, you don't have to worry about getting lobbed a whole lot, especially if it gets down to their feet. It's possible they could half volley lob you, but it's not very likely. They could try. More than likely, they'd end up popping it up to you. So if they get it low, close in tight. I'm sorry, if your partner gets it low, close in tight and make them try to hit that shot. Even if they do, your partner should be able to have you covered, but to be honest, it's a very advanced shot and very difficult. So feel free to get nice and close and really pressure your opponents. Don't worry about the lob. If they volley lob you or half volley lob you repeatedly, then as with all other situations, make an adjustment. Don't be a sucker and keep doing it. make an adjustment, maybe just close in as far as around the service line or a step inside the service line, and then go from there and try to take that shot out of the air as an overhead and attack right back at your opponents and try to put it away.